Hey guys, Ash here, coming at you today in Watcher of Realms. I'm not alone. I'm joined by Cold Brew, CB, Watcher of Realms. What's up, Cold Brew? How you doing, man? Welcome back to the channel.
Hey man, I'm doing very well, very well. We just finished the collab on my channel, so I'm excited to continue on.
Yeah, dude, this is a day of collabs. We're doing 2 raid collabs. We're doing 2 Watcher of Realm collabs. Go ahead and check out Cold Brew's channels. I have them linked for you guys in the description below. Today, we're going to talk about how to build a supreme uber just crazy damage dealing nuker in this game. We're gonna talk a little bit about the stats, a little bit about maybe some outside the box things to look at: attack speed, crit damage, crit rate, attack. What should we be focused on? When should we be focused on? And maybe talk about some tips and differentiators between certain situations and certain heroes. So without further ado, let's just jump in here. I'm gonna show you some of my most used nukers right out the bat. Before we do anything else and talk about general tips, I'm just going to show you kind of my gear and my total stats on some of these, and let me know if anything kind of jumps out at you as like, I wouldn't do that, or maybe do this instead, Ash. By the way, you've been playing this game like since way before launch, so you're one of, or no.
Not really. I cooperation with them where I tested the game way before it even launched on beta.
Okay, because I knew you were playing it like a year ago or something, you know? Yeah.
I play tested the game, and I gave them back feedback of after 8 hours or so of playing the game.
Oh, cool.
And then I did play the beta, I think, for like a sponsorship, and that was pretty much it. And only like a month, maybe a month and a half after the global launch is where I actually started playing like daily.
Okay, I got you. Well, either way, you've cleared almost every gear raid. You've cleared Void Rift, hardest difficulty. So you're my resident expert today here, and I want you to rip me apart, man. And I'm sure my viewers will benefit from this as well. And hey, I mean, we're going to talk about some of my legendaries, but what we talk about is generally going to apply, with some exceptions. Obviously, every hero is a little bit different to any like DPS hero out there. So let's just look at Setrum here. You can see my gear is good, but I just kind of started clearing gear raid 19. So I haven't, you know, my gear is limited to like 18 below for the most part right now. So I feel like this is a really good spot, because I feel like a lot of players are in this spot right now themselves as well. So, you know, when you look at these builds, like overall, do you see anything that jumps out at you as like, dude, Ash, what are you doing there?
What I would say is that you're a little bit lower on the attack side of things in terms of how much attack some of your heroes have. Obviously, some of them you cannot just max it out. Like marksmen usually have very low base, so it's very difficult to get them over the 12,000 range in total attack. But once you get there, you're okay moving on to more crit damage, which I believe your Hatsuit should be around that range. She's built, looks to build okay. Usually you're looking for basically attack bonuses wherever you can, and then at least on 2 of your primaries, maybe your amulet and your bangle, and then maybe your ring can have like a crit damage. That's like the ideal build. But until you reach the ideal build, what you do is you slowly work on just getting attack bonus and maybe crit rate. And then if you cannot get the crit rate, you get it on the ring or the what's called bangle, and that's going to give you like the early crit rate to start critting on enemies and doing just more damage. But attack is more beneficial in this game than you might think, because it actually helps ignore defense, if that makes any sense. Okay, so some enemies have such high defense that you need to pass a threshold of attack to be able to do more damage to them. And it's something that it took me a while to learn, but after I realized it, I started building with more attack rather than just going straight up crit damage, let's say, instead of attack. And sometimes for marksmen, it's better to just go 3 attack bonus primaries on them if you can, you know, get all the other stats like crit rate and some attack speed and all that.
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, rule of thumb, this is what I've been operating under, but it sounds like you agree, is we're aiming for essentially, first thing that we're aiming for when building a nuker is to double their attack. Like, so if we're sitting at, if we're like, give or take. So if we're sitting here at 8,000, which already is maybe a little bit of exception versus the norm. If we're sitting at 8,000, you know, we're aiming for plus 16,000 ideally in a perfect world, right? So that should be what we're aiming for on every. So for a Hatsuit, we're aiming at like plus 8,000, like double that number. Okay.
Correct.
So should we be aiming for 100% crit rate on every single nuker? Kind of like raid, like no matter what?
So the difference with raid is that raid, you have the turn-based system where every turn you take is one opportunity to do a hit.
All right, you got one chance to hit him here, Dom.
And that opportunity, you have to crit because you lose out on a big amount of damage. But in this game, it's the constant attacking that your team is doing throughout a fight. You'll do multiple times your ultimates, multiple times your basic skills, and during that time you don't need to have the crit at 100%. You don't when you're first starting out, you can just go with 80%, 60%, and slowly work your way up.
Okay.
Obviously eventually you want to have 100%, but it's not as crucial as it is in raid. Okay, so more attack percent at the start is going to give you way more punch, if that makes sense, rather than just going crit rate.
So shoot to double your attack number and get as much crit rate as you can muster, and those are your first priorities on any DPS. And then after that, how do you parcel out going high? Let's just say I can get a hero using 3 attack percentages or whatever. I can get a hero to 100% crit rate and to double the attack. At that point, how much attack should, like, how do I handle crit damage versus attack at that point? Does that make sense?
After that point, you just gotta find those really difficult items to find where they have triple bonuses, right? Yep. Where they have, let's say it's an attack bonus on the primary, then it has crit rate, crit damage, and then, you know, attack speed is the ideal. Or I guess when you're first starting out, you're looking for the good primary, crit rate on the substat, and then crit damage on the other substat, and then you're looking for maybe a triple. So those are the stats that you're looking for. If it's a crit damage primary, again, yeah, you're looking at attack bonus, a crit rate, like the one you're showing. Yep. So you're looking for those stats, and after a point, you're looking for them to be in a set that is actually useful for what you're gonna do.
Let's pause and talk about sets briefly. So I find it, I mean, quite obviously, I find it a lot easier to focus on the 2-piece set on the weapon and the chest early on than the 3-piece. So, but I think we both agree here, but I always advise, especially newer beginners, stats over sets, right? So like you shouldn't stress out about sets especially in the early game. That's something that we can kind of build up towards, unless you're just like, you know, you're sitting on 2 good pieces that make a lot of sense for a given hero.
Yeah, that would make sense. If you can get the stats, it's obviously better to just break the sets apart and eventually work your way into using a set that makes sense for, let's say you're using it on a fighter, you want to have attack bonus, attack speed, or crit damage, or whatever. Here, if it's a healer, you want maybe healing effect, or maybe more health, depending on what your goals are. So getting the sets is something more of like the later part of the game, but at the start you're looking to get those stats boosted up as much as you can. So you're not thinking, oh, this is a healer set, so only my healer is gonna equip it now. You're not gonna think like that.
All right, so now the $1 million question. We talked about goals for attack. We've talked about how to utilize crit rate, crit damage. We talked about the ideal kind of breakdown for most nukers is going to be 1 crit damage and 2 attack percentages in your 3 on the right side here. So we talked about all that, but now, how do you parcel out rage, regen, and attack speed? Are there certain classes like fighter versus mage versus marksman that we're generally going to want to go heavier in attack speed for? Talk to me a little bit about that. Now, it's probably a good time to pause too and say that there's some heroes that we just want to like absolutely max their attack speed and nothing else, like some Mari situations or Pyros. So like I'm talking about general nukers though.
Like attack speed at the start of when you're playing, it's a little bit weird because you're not exactly on how attack speed affects your hero, but it's a very difficult stat to get on top of everything else. So don't worry too much about attack speed when you're first starting out. If you can get 50 to 100 attack speed when you're first starting out, plus whatever else, it's going to give you a tremendous amount of benefit comparing it to having 400 attack speed. Because the very first part of, let's say, consider it like
better like bang for our buck early on.
It's like a curve. It's got diminishing returns. The more you have, the more difficult it becomes to hit with quicker interval. So the very first few points of attack speed that you get give more for you, more bang for your buck, as you said. So you start out, you give them some attack speed, and in terms of rage regen, it's very specific on some heroes on which heroes you're going to use Rage Regen. I haven't honestly played around much with Rage Regen, like high Rage Regen, like you showed on your Pyros.
Yeah.
I haven't played around much with that. There's some definite strategies where you use that in order to get those ultimates as often as possible. There's like an argument about having I've heard something about like 25% Rage Regen on every hero that you have is like the gold standard for at least the guild boss, but I haven't tested it to that extent to actually confirm that. So I'm just going from what I heard, at least for Rage Regen.
Okay, and attack speed. So I'm gonna include the chart right now on the screen too to show how attack speed scales, right? And you get diminished returns as well as you scale. But for like, you know, I'm looking at Maul here, right, on the screen, and one of my most used champs, and he's great, he's unbelievable. But attack speed, like I love his ultimate too. It's like, and his ultimate's so good. We're doing 750% or 900% AoE damage with fully awakened and booked out or skilled up. So, you know, does it make, I sometimes I think to myself, what if I just went all Rage Regen, you know? But obviously it doesn't really work like that because his damage from his ultimate is still factoring in all these other, you know, stats that we talked
like
about.
The attack percent, and the crit damage.
So, okay, so, but I would say though, to that point, Calamity sets obviously are great, but Whirlwind, which we showed on a hero earlier, I think that's a great way to get that base plus 75, because after that it's going to be diminished returns anyway. So if you just pick up a Whirlwind set as a 2-piece, that's going to be like great for your overall attack speed. You don't even have to worry about focusing on it too much after that, right?
Yeah, because you get that basic, you know, huge difference to the attack interval because of just that 75 attack speed that you can focus on other stats as you're growing your account. And eventually you'll see that you'll replace that set with more attack bonus as you're getting those triple substat items that you're looking for, those really, really rare items that everybody, you know, is trying to find, those ancient items even that ideally have 3 substats that can potentially roll in the purple range, which is a good range of stats.
Sure. Is there any difference? I mean, we already talked about marksmen tend to have a little bit lower attack. Is there any other difference between gearing out a mage, a fighter, and a marksman in terms of gear priorities or stat priorities?
I would say the marksman, you might find occasions where you're going to be using more attack percent because of how difficult it is to push through those high defenses. Like for gear A3, attack bonus is very, very crucial. You might go triple attack bonus instead of more crit damage on them.
Okay.
Just to be able to get through those high defense targets. On gear A321, it becomes very, very hard. And using champion heroes such as Dolores, who also boost attack, helps you even more to do even more damage just because of how high the enemy's defense is.
That's really good. Yeah, that's a good advice there, because it wouldn't be, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because they don't scale so well, you might tend to be like, okay, I'll just try to get double and then leave it at that. But you're saying that sometimes it makes sense to just keep scaling that attack, throw in an inspiration to Dolores, and then you're not going to be displeased with the results.
Yeah, definitely. You'll see the difference there once you give more attack to your heroes rather than trying to get crit damage. With like fighters as an example, you can see the case of giving them more crit damage. You can try it out, but it's kind of the same thing. It depends on what content you're trying to do. For let's say the guild boss I believe does not have that high defense comparing it to other areas of the game, so it can be argued that you can try and go for more crit damage on fighters who have already a higher base. Since the fighters have more, you know, it can get more attack than other classes, they can do tremendous amounts of damage to the guild boss. And you might even see heroes built on those top teams with 400% crit damage. Those end game accounts are crazy. They build them with like double crit damage primary stat.
So I have triple attack bonus on my Wrath here. You would suggest getting rid of one of these get bag boys and going crit damage instead?
You could. Your attack is not crazy high. It's still a very solid amount. It's like 16,000. It's still, you know, that number you mentioned, double of what your base is. So you could potentially go like a crit damage with an attack bonus substat in there, maybe a crit rate also in there, and you'll see, you know, bigger damage numbers coming in from Wrath.
All right.
Like a huge parry.
But like, okay, my Hatsu, for example, like I haven't touched her in a while. I still have crit rate, which is,
right.
I find going crit rate on the Bangle in the early game, like when you're just starting out, I feel like it's fine. Yeah. But I guess to your point earlier too, we could go attack percentage and just try to get as much as we could crit rate elsewhere, right? It might yield better results. But you know, at the end of the day, we're working with the gear that we have. But once I start working on my 3 pieces, what would you say are like the biggest go-tos in terms of sets for the 3-piece for our Nukers?
For the Nukers, for the most part, especially fighters, even marksmen are going to go for the Infernal Roar set, which is one you get from the from gear rate 3, okay. And you get it from 19 and after, so that's why you don't have it. It's the set that.
There, I have 1.
Oh, you got 1. It's very difficult to get.
Basic attack damage plus 40%.
Yeah. It because you're just attacking so much with your basic, it just gives you an insane boost.
Okay.
Throughout the fight, and then.
So that's your favorite out of the god tiers here. What are some of your
Out of those, that's my favorite. Out of the normal ones, I would say the normal sets. The one I use the most probably would be, I think, Curse. I found once I was, you know, just slowly progressing my account, I found I used Curse a lot because that gives you more damage based on the number of enemies. And usually when you're
cool.
playing, you're gonna find 5 enemies in your range. And that's gonna give you 30% straight up damage.
All right.
Boost.
I will try out some Curse gear, man. Great.
So yeah, that set is actually pretty cool to use if you have the pieces to put them together. And pretty much that I haven't really used many sets when I was first starting out because I just couldn't find the pieces that would work them together. It's not as easy as other games to gear.
No.
This one is very hard to get good gear. Even the ancients are very difficult to get. Like it takes a long time to farm for those, lots of energy, lots of stamina.
It really does. It takes a while to gear up, and really they need to do to me a quality of life improvement to the gearing and selling system, the filter system, I guess, because it's tough to kind of find crappy gear sometimes. At least I find it that way. But any other tips before we let you go, Cold Brew? Like everything here so far has been amazing. I think the artifacts probably could be like a whole nother video, but I mean it's pretty basic. We want more damage, you know, like we go for more crit damage, more like this one ignoring
pretty much like for artifacts you go that way. You go mythicals are gonna be the best usage, except for some very specific one epic artifact, and then depending on the class, some legendary artifacts can be used as well.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, Cobra, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate the advice and tips. If you guys have any questions that we didn't address, or if you want to see Cold Brew back and we could talk about like how to gear out, you know, defenders or healers or tanks or whatever, would love to make that happen as well. So I'll have a link to the collab that we did on Cold Brew's Watcher of Realms channel as well for you guys to go ahead and check out after this one. And this one is wrapped, so no better time to go ahead and do that. CB, thanks for joining me, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching. And as always, take care.